Well, welcome back.
Yeah, back. We're in
We're
February, new month.
Yeah, crazy. Honestly, like 12th of the way through the year already. It feels January flew by, and I've honestly just been sat in the editing cave. So yeah.
Mine felt like about a year long.
Did
I
it?
think, yeah, definitely. Like, I think I did a story on the last day of January, and it was like, what's a year this month has been?
Yeah.
I don't really felt for me. Maybe because I hadn't been away. I had a wedding kind of but then I felt like after that I've just been like Groundhog Day.
Okay,
up, walk dog, desk. Dark,
Don't you find days go
sleep.
quicker like that though? When it's Groundhog Day, it's just like.
But it's not exciting. Do you know what I mean? Like,
No.
it just feels like I'm literally doing the same thing and the same thing, and that loop of that never seems to end.
Yeah, definitely. I've definitely felt the same way. But yeah, it's just being in that like cycle of doing the same thing. And because you've got a holiday coming up in February,
I'll be away when this
made
goes
it
out.
longer as well.
I think that's what's made it.
Yeah.
Like the last 2 years, I've been in Florida in January, and this year I haven't, which is definitely a first world problem.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think because then I've known, I've got to get all this stuff done because I'm going away in February.
Yeah.
I think that's what's forced me to be at my desk more. Like January has been a holiday, can kind of coast through the month, just kind of doing things at a bit more of a leisurely pace.
Yeah.
But because no, this is the task list that needs to get action before I go away.
Yeah.
I feel like it's almost been like it was before Christmas when I was in that kind of
done,
marathon to get edits out. You know,
Yeah.
it's been the same.
It's not a usual January where you're like, okay, now I get to go on holiday and have a break.
Yeah.
And it's just like, you need to catch up. You need to get these things done. And so, we're recording another 2 episodes today. And our first one is going to be an episode similar to episodes we've done before because obviously we're probably one of the only podcasts I know really that does photo and video, has a photographer and a videographer on it. We wanted to do an episode really about what happens when you don't get on with each other. Because obviously, we're an advocate for, we as a team, we work perfectly at a wedding. Most photographers and videographers now are a great team at a wedding, but that's not always going to happen. And so I've heard stories of, videographers shouting at photographers when things haven't gone their way, and vice versa. And this is basically how to avoid it to get into that point, I guess.
I think we have some fun with this, because there are going to be a little things that probably we aren't going to agree on because we're only going to see them from our own points of view.
Yeah.
But then, like I say, I think half the reason now that I like to work with the videographers that I work with all the time, or I'm lucky that a lot of couples go, oh, can you recommend us a videographer? I really like that because I know that this issue will never arise. And I think it probably only has happened a couple of times to me.
Yeah.
But then I am aware that kind of it's almost like photographer privilege. Do you know what I mean? Like I realise that I'm in the privileged position that I am at. There's always most of the weddings that I'm at. There's always going to be a photographer, which is me, and I'm quite often working solo.
Yeah.
So I don't. It's only probably a handful of times a year that I go, I've got to compromise maybe on the way that I work because of a videographer. Where when you work, you're always turning up to the day going, oh, I've worked with this photographer, this is great, or don't know this person, how's today going to go?
Yeah.
Because there's 99% of the weddings that you do, you're going to work with the photographer.
Yeah.
So it's kind of nice to see both sides of this, isn't it? And to kind of see how I approach it as being the guy that's always there, and then you, the person that's always got to work with the photographer who's maybe not used to working with video.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess statistically, if you've worked with you probably worked with less videographers than I have photographers, which is why you've got less of those experiences. So there's not to say that photographers are going to be worse towards videographers as videographers are to photographers, or that one's going to be more of a pain in the ass than the other one. But obviously, like you say, with videographers, we turn up to weddings every single one pretty much. There is a photographer, whereas you guys don't necessarily have that. And I know it's getting more and more popular, but I guess it depends on your style and the places you work and the couples that you target and things like that.
I still find it really odd though. I think we've spoken about this probably in the end of year review episode. But I would say in 2024 we worked together 3 times. I worked with Josh a couple of times, and I would say that year was probably 56 or 60% of the weddings that I shot had video.
Yeah.
Where then I look at last year, I worked with 2 content creators and 3 videographers, and that was once each. Once with me, once with Josh, and once with a guy called Nathan. So out of my 30 weddings, it was a much lower percentage that I actually worked with a videographer. So if I come back around this year and I start to work with a lot more again, I think I am going to have a little bit of a kind of reset and a kind of little word to myself to go, okay, no, you can't just go and stand there or wander as freely as you do normally. And it'd be interesting to see how the year plays out, I think.
Yeah, but I mean, you're great at working collaboratively with videographers anyway, and most photographers are. And like I know people now that I see them at weddings, photographers at weddings, and they're like, oh, I'm really glad to have a videographer because it means you can bounce ideas off each other and things like that.
Yeah.
And that's a stark difference to when I started in like 2017, like when I went full time in 2017, and I had photographers go, right, you're going to stand behind me. And I'm going to do this, and it's like, no, because they've paid me to do the job, and I don't work for you. And a lot of that has changed. But
until content creators came along, and
and
now photographers and videographers are doing that to the content. I think that although this episode is aimed at kind of us talking from our point of views about being a photographer and a videographer and playing nice together, I think that have all of the things that we say in mind. That if you rock up to a wedding with a content creator, whether you know that they're going to be there or not until the day, but just kind of think about that same level of cooperativeness and kindness. If you do approach one, and hopefully they will treat you with the same level as kind of.
Think about the person behind it. Like at the end of the day, if you've got a problem with content creators, you've got a problem with the genre of content creator as a whole, not the individual people who are making like the business out of it. Like they're just getting paid to do a job, and so they're not stepping on your couple shoot because it's not your couple shoot. Or they're not getting in the way of your the front of the ceremony because they're paid to do it equally as you are. So
I think that's the bigger point. The fact they are paid to do that job equally. Like it's not like the florist has just hung around and is wandering around with her phone because they're throwing petals that she happened to make for them. It's like that person has been hired by that couple to make photo and video, whether it's on a fancy camera or on their phone. They are still doing the job they were hired to do. Is when people get out of their lane and try to do your job. I think that's maybe a different ball game that you are allowed to be a little bit maybe annoyed. But particularly when it comes to video, photo or content, is we are all there to hold that device and record whatever it is with it. So we all deserve, to not kind of be sabotaged by one another.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And, like a lot of this comes from, at least my points come from like the experience of like over the years dealing with some situations that have not been ideal. Like there have been times where I've turned up to a wedding and instantly been met with that cold feeling. There's been times where I've turned up to a wedding and the photographer's outright ignored me.
Wow.
And then I've had to deal with that all day and like not been spoken to, like not been treated like a human. But then to the couple, they'll be all like wavy and, oh, hi, this is amazing. And then they'll turn to me and it will be nothing, like literally cold. And I don't personally understand that. But people are going to do people, like they're going to be them. And this is not about what happens at weddings. This is about, I guess this is not about why, or this is not about the stories of, oh, this person was a knob or whatever. This is about, okay, if you do turn up to a wedding and the videographer or the photographer is like that, what can you do then to make sure that couple still gets the best out of it?
I think that's it. Like we've always wanted to try and use this podcast, haven't we, to kind of to educate or offer advice to people that maybe haven't come across certain things before. And we could easily sit here for an hour and trade war stories about the people that have wronged us at weddings or people that say that have acted like a knob. But it's not so much about that. And I think for the fact, like you've said, is that it was far more of a problem when you entered the industry a decade ago than what it is now. Is that if you are maybe someone who's not been in weddings as long as you have, that aren't used to people behaving like that, that when it does happen to you, it will probably knock you even more, or it feels even more unexpected. So if you can we can share some stories about how we would go about it, hopefully that even if you're in that kind of tailspin, you feel that you've got a little bit of something in your arsenal to go, okay, this is how I can work around it, rather than just kind of take it personally and cry in the corner about it and do your job.
Is this person mean to me? It's like, I mean, if you're starting as a videographer now, or you've started in the last couple of years, 97% of photographers now are absolutely lovely. And most of my bookings, or as of the year before last, most of my bookings that year came from photographers. So obviously there's that as well. Like we work together well, we work together collaboratively. But so what happens when you turn up to a wedding and that doesn't happen? And perhaps, like, I know you mentioned that, and we mentioned before we started recording this, that there's that element of what can you do before a wedding, that preparation. And I have in my contact form, in fact, like, who is your photographer? And as a photographer, you're probably not going to have that for a videographer, because they might not have, the chances are they've probably not got their videographer yet. But I do think that as a photographer, you should be asking who the videographer is before, at some point before the wedding, so that when you turn up, you're not surprised that you're going to have to share that sort of creative control with somebody, but also just to know who you're working with. And I've started reaching out to, if I'm working with someone I've not worked with before, I've started to reach out and just say hi. And it's not even like, hi, I do this the way and this way, this way. It's hi as in like, okay, I want to work with you and I'm looking forward to it. And that's it, really.
That's exactly what I was about to say, is that I think that, I have it in my final questionnaire now. So the one that goes out sort of 6 weeks before the wedding, when I'm asking for all of the details.
Yeah.
Do you have a videographer? If so, who is it? And I think that way it's allowed me to not get caught out. Or if it is a videographer that I've not worked with before, I can just have a little look at style and probably make some assumptions about, okay, they're maybe going to want to do this or do that. But I think I have had it a couple of times where videographers have reached out and have not just been, oh, hey, we're working together on Saturday. It's really, really cool to meet you. Like, I look forward to seeing the day. It's been like, just so you know, like, I do this style and like, I'll be bringing this kit with me, and almost feel like they're trying to lay the land of like more or less, like they're trying to get their bit in first to be like, well, I shoot everything on a 24, so I'm always going to be in your way, and it's okay because I've told you before the wedding.
It's actually
like, and I think that is more odd. But just to kind of say, to have a friendly reach out to someone and just go, oh, hey, like, we're working together. It shows then, or kind of, I would go into that wedding not instantly thinking, oh my God, I don't know what this guy is like. Or again, maybe your brand kind of presents you in a way that maybe you're actually not as a human. Do you know what I mean? If you come across as all sort of like, is he like you in like black and white and kind of look all kind of wistful and up yourself, and then you're actually a really friendly person. Like, you know what I mean? Is to get that kind of human, like a voice note or something, land in your DMs a couple of days before a wedding. That would be really, really cool.
I guess sometimes, if I get an inquiry and or if I get a photographer put in the questionnaire or the inquiry form, and I have a look and it's like the top 3 posts are all like Vogue this and Vogue that, I'm like, oh, okay, they're going to be one of these people. And then like you turn up and they're just that normal, like happy, like easygoing people. They just happen to have their Instagram looking all like that. So but
it's it. And I will say that I think, and I wanted to kind of pop this story in, is that the only reason that I have that in my questionnaire, it got put in, I think in 2022 or 2023, because it did happen to me where I turned up to a wedding in the morning and didn't know there was a videographer, and I walked into the venue, and you had to kind of cut through the ceremony room to then go out into the courtyard and get to the prep space. And I rock up to my wedding sort of 2.5, 3 hours before a wedding, so I'm there pretty early. Like, quite often I'm there before a videographer anyway. And I wander in, and there's like a guy like laying out, like knelt down, like facing away from me, like laying out cameras, setting up tripods. And I came in and was like, excuse me, mate, like, I don't mean to be rude, but who the hell are you? Like, when that panic went through my mind, because at that point I didn't realise that he was a videographer. I was like, have I come to the wrong venue? I've done this, and it was like, oh no, I'm Harry, I'm the videographer. And I was like, oh, like, and it was great. And obviously now, like, I work with Harry all the time. Like, shout out to Harry from ID Fix. And it's just been really bizarre. And by the end of that day, we got on great, and we've worked together since. But I just remember on the day coming in, like, almost instantly being on the back foot then and being like, crap, that's a videographer. Like, I wasn't expecting that. And I think it was like an October wedding, so I was probably starting to kind of feel tired, or like kind of I was quite set in how I was going to go about what I was doing. It was a venue that I shot at all the time, and then kind of like, I hadn't considered that.
You knew how they was going to go.
I'd have to wrangle kind of around stuff and this and that, and I was like, brilliant. But so after that I was like, this is definitely a me problem. Like, the couple were lovely, they just weren't that chatty in the lead up. So because I hadn't asked, they hadn't told me. So that was just something that I added in after that. And I think now, for the start of this year, I've changed that. Now it says, are you having a videographer or content creator? So that then they will tell me in the same box. So again, I can be prepared, because I had a couple of weddings last year where my couple just wrote in the videographer box their content creator's name. But I want to kind of be that I'm not setting myself up to fail, if that makes sense. Yeah,
definitely. And I think, it's like you say, you turn up to a wedding with a certain expectation of how it's going to be, and I get that if you turn up and there's someone there as a surprise. I know that, in fact, that I turned up to 2 weddings last year where they did not tell me or the photographer that they had a content creator, and like it didn't affect me whatsoever, really, but it is a bit of that surprise of, okay, there's going to be a third person or even a fifth person there. And again, it's not the fact that it was a content creator, it's the fact that, okay, I knew there's going to be 2 photographers and 2 videographers, but now there's going to be a third company trying to get extra things.
But also, you don't want to feel like you're being rude to them, but there's also that natural kind of shock element, isn't there? Which maybe you'd not kind of come across before because you're always used to there being a photographer there. So to walk in and there'd be someone in the room like holding like their phone on the gimbal, and you'd be like, oh.
Yeah.
And it kind of,
so weird.
And you don't want to come across like you're being rude, like, why are you here? Because it's not, I say, it's not a loaded question. It's that I don't want you here. It's just, I didn't know that. And I think it naturally does kind of come at that, like almost like a mild shock level, which kind of you do have to take a minute to kind of reel from and then go, okay, how are we going to move forward with this?
But maybe I just need to then take a leaf from my own book and put in my question there. Have you got a content creator?
Yeah.
So yeah,
I still kind of find it wild that you had those instances where, or that people would want that, maybe because it's so different to the weddings that I shoot, to have 2 videographers, 2 photographers, and a content creator, like 5 people.
Yeah,
like it seems bonkers.
But you think, I guess, the weddings that I aim to shoot are like they have a lot going on. They normally pour money into like different bits of entertainment and things like that.
And I guess probably I always think of it in ratios. If you're working with slightly bigger guest numbers as well, which if you've got 2 videographers, you probably are. Yeah. Like most of the weddings that I shoot are between 50 and 70 guests. Yeah. Whereas if you're 5 of the people amongst that 70, you make up a much bigger percentage of the people at the wedding than if there's 150 guests, don't you? I guess
that is a good point. Yeah. So when you turn up in the morning, obviously, like we've spoken about having a message beforehand, and that sort of just gets the guard down a little bit. Like I rarely get it, to be honest, but like a few photographers last year messaged me before the wedding and was like, I just wanted to reach out and say hi and looking forward to working with you, love your work, stuff like that. And it was just like really nice. Like I felt like for every bit that I would have been driving to that wedding, like a bit nervous about how I was gonna have to work that day. Like just having the photographer just have that little bit of insight to be like, that photographer, that videographer's work is quite nice. I might message him and say hello and stuff like that. That just instantly got things off on a good foot. And it's the same way with the morning. Like turn up in the morning, and there's going to be sometimes those conversations. Like you are eventually going to have to get down to business of, okay, like is there anything I need to know before the day starts? And you're going to surprise me with, oh, by the way, I do this all the time, and it's going to be right, like annoying for you.
Yeah.
And even if they do something that's like a little bit like, okay, that's quite frustrating, or they shoot in a way that is entirely posed. To have that like heads up beforehand, like. You know, like you can step in and do video bits afterwards, but I shoot like this, so it's going to be very stationary and probably quite boring for you. Okay, like you've told me, that's cool.
At least be nice first. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like we've talked about a shit sandwich before. Do you know what I mean? Don't just walk straight in, and before you've gone, oh hi, my name's Chris. You're like,
I'm going to piss you
just
off.
Just let you know I'm this. Like kind of lead the conversation with that. Like these, like say, almost. And I think that if you don't do the message before, you almost need to do a version of that on the morning. Like I often find, again, because I start 3 hours before, it is fairly common that sometimes I'll be at prep when the videographer turns up. And I'm also kind of aware and don't want to kind of come across like a dick that over-egg that can be quite intimidating then, because it throws me if I rock up and the videographer's already there. I almost, and it probably doesn't, but it makes me feel like they're going to think I'm late because he was here before, or it kind of, they're walking up to the house and can hear that laughter and giggling and you're part of that, and they feel that like they're kind of like trying to introduce another friend to the circle straight away. So I always kind of try to be, if I am that person who's there first, as kind of welcoming as I can. If it's a videographer that I have worked with before, try to kind of be that like, oh hey mate, really good to see you, like, and then almost try and do that like introduction bit, or see if the bride's gonna do it, to kind of like go like, oh, I'll put my bag over there, so if you want to go and stash your stuff with mine, like do that. And almost trying to offer that kind of upright like sort of friendliness, and kind of welcome them into so they feel as part of what we were doing before they got there straight away.
Definitely. Say hi, just like introduce yourself, like, oh, you know, how shot many weddings and shit, like just all the small talk and bits like that, and just like you're human first and foremost. And I think that's the main thing, isn't it? Like wherever you agree with there should be photographers or videographers, or there should be content creators or not, that person's a human who runs a business.
And also you're in front of people. You're in front of the bride normally, you're in front of maybe her mum, and you're in front of her bridesmaids. Where if you walk straight in or an arse in that thing, someone in that room will see that is a mark on your professionalism, isn't it? Like if you come in and go, well, I wasn't expecting you, like more or less stand over there, people will be like, wow. Where even like kill them with kindness, honest, and even if you have to go and have that chat about, oh, I'm probably going to annoy you, I think the morning's the perfect place for it, isn't it? Because normally details are in another room or the dress is.
Yeah.
So I was trying to kind of have that nicety and then be like, oh, should we go and do this? And then we can have a chat at the same time.
Yeah.
And almost then you're probably at a point where you are, even in the next room or somewhere kind of more alone to talk shop, rather than having to do that in front. Like, they don't want to care about what focal length you're using and I am. The bride doesn't, but we need to know. So kind of the details, I think, are a really good point to go and talk about.
That's a very good point. And that conversation is also like very telling as well, that like, because you have like, you go off into another room and then like I've, plenty of times last year I've gone off into another room with the photographer and we would just start chatting like straight away and we hit it off, and then that sets it up for the rest of the day. But equally, because of the whole, stealing my flat lay opinion that some photographers have, which is valid, but I don't necessarily agree with it. I think sometimes it'll be the opposite way around, and I'll be like, oh, have you got your detail? The photographer's taking them away. Oh, have you got your dress? Yeah, the photographer's doing it. Oh, okay, I guess I'll just go and get that then.
So would you go and find the photographer at that point? Is that the way you combat it? Almost rock up to where they're doing it and almost be like, well, I need this too, and then
because this is how I've changed over the years. I think like there would have been a time probably pre-COVID where if the photographer had taken the couple out for a shoot without saying anything, or taken the dress somewhere nice and not said anything to me, I probably would have been too like, okay, I'm just like, I would have gone straight into my shell and been like, okay, I don't like this person, I'm a bit annoyed now. But I think post-COVID, I've gone more into more of a, do you know what? I need that. So regardless of whether they want me to have it or not, I'm getting it.
Yeah.
And like, and sometimes, or most of the time, it's because they've worked so many times without a videographer that they're used to walking into a room, taking the dress and shoes and skedaddling somewhere else. And it's nothing to do with the fact that they don't want you to get their shot. But there will be that minuscule amount of times where it's like, this is my like flat lay. And I've had times where I've rocked up to a wedding and the photographer's been doing the flat lay, and I'll be like, oh, can I get a shot of that when you're done with it? And they'll smush it all up. And they go, yeah, now you can have it. And I'm like, oh, right, okay.
I never understand this. Like, I think it's so silly because for me, like, I think the overriding thing of all of it, whatever you think of that person and the way they work on a personal level, it's kind of by the by, is that you still need to produce a product for the couple, do you know what I mean? It's always the greater good of them that should be in mind. And I always find it really weird then, where I was kind of, and again, I'm not the best flat lay guy in the world, but I'll always try and find a nice background or a nice piece of a chair or somewhere nice, buy some nice light and lay it out. And if I'm with the photographer, the videographer whilst I'm doing it, go, oh, do you have a set way that you do it? Because I'm not fast. Or if not, I'll lay it out and then go, I'll just leave it for you to do. But I think, definitely, I think if the photographer or the videographer is frosty to you, it's almost, again, to go into that other room away from the couple, if you do need to kind of be firm and set boundaries, you can afford to be a little bit more blunt to somebody.
Yeah.
And also, I think, do it early in the day. Because like you say, I think there's probably a lot of photographers that don't work with videographers straight away. And if you don't make your intentions clear when they've probably got time to have a conversation about it, if you start telling them the second before the couple start walking towards them down the aisle that you want to gimbal back with them, that's when I think they'll get annoyed because they have no chance. There's no level of compromise, or that becomes sabotage and not compromise. Yeah. Like, I'd be annoyed about it if someone was insistent on doing that. But if they were like, no, it has to be this way, at least I know then, okay, I need to stand off to the side, have a longer lens or whatever. Because I know that I'm still covered. I still have an option. But when someone leaves you with no option, I think that's why I like that time in the morning, that particularly for the vein of this episode, if a photographer or a videographer is rude to you, almost to go away from the couple, away from whatever, and almost be like, this is how it is. You might not like it, but we need to work together today. This is what I need to get out of this, and this is how I'm going to do it. Yeah. So more or less, we either work together, or we're gonna have a really crap day.
Yeah. I completely agree with that, and I think that is a good time to do it, and ask the important questions as well. Ask, for me, an important question is what focal lengths you shoot with, because if they're shooting like 85 or whatever most of the day, or 70 to 200, I know that I can probably get a little bit closer than I normally would, because they're back there getting the compressed shot, so I can be off to the side getting like.
Do you know what I find videographers get really funny about sometimes though? Like, particularly in speeches or even in a ceremony, like, I sometimes kind of circle around, because sometimes the best place to shoot from is stood up behind or next to their tripod, because I'm not going to be in that shot. But also, if I look at the screen as I'm walking past the back angle and can see how wide it is, I instantly know roughly where I can be as to whether I'm going to be in shot or not. And the amount of people that have gone, don't get in my camera, or, oh, did you touch? Like, really? Almost like they're worried. Like, or you can just naturally see them start to look a little bit worried. As I get near to the camera, as if I'm going to knock it over, or I'm going to stand in front of it or something. And it's almost like, well, you know what that looks like because you edit it, or that's the way you always do it. But some people love a really wide from the back to get the whole room in, where some people love a 200 from the back so they can get the valves down the aisle and it'd be really tight. And it's like, well, if that's the case, I can get a lot nearer if you're on a long lens than I can if you're on a wide one.
True, yeah. I think lay down the law then, like not the law, but like lay down what you need and what you think, like the style that you normally work in. And those conversations are really, really important. And I think for me, the most important thing is just prepping the photographer for what I'm going to be like, because I know that there are videographers that will stand in the background during the couple shoot and not say anything and literally just shoot how it is. And that's fine, and that's a style. But I don't want the photographer expecting me to be like that, because I'm not like that. So in the morning, generally at some point in the morning, I will say, just to let you know, for whatever you do with the couple stuff, like you do, I'm not going to get in your way. But if you, like when you're finished with your pose, if you can just let them chill for a bit and I can step in and do whatever. But if you're going to make them laugh and chat and whatever, I probably won't need to do that. But if not, I'll probably need to get something just to get that little bit of like, okay, I'm not going to have this all to myself. Yeah. Because I met a photographer at a wedding last year, and one of the things they said, and they were absolutely lovely, so I don't really understand why they said it, but one of the things they said was, I don't understand why videographers don't realise to just stay out of the way during, be quiet and stay out of the way during the couple shoot. I was like, be quiet and stay out of the way. And it proper offended me. And I was like, there's no world in which I'd be quiet and stay out of the way. That's not my job.
But why should you need to? Yeah. Again, everyone's got their own style. If you're it's like the whole documentary versus editorial thing, isn't it? Like I quite often find it, and I think which surprises some videographers in that same notion is I'll say to them in that morning as well, just to let you know, I'm super hands off of a couple shoot. Yeah. I really want to be really couple led. A lot of time we'll go for a walk, we'll stop at a couple of spots, but I'm not going to be posing them. So a lot of my work is quite movement based, but at the same time, when we're walking out, that's when I'm getting my walking shots. I don't just stand next to the couple and wander along having a chat with them. Because that's when I'm working. Yeah. But at the same time, if you want them to do a set pose, ask them. Like I'll more or less say, give them that point. Then don't if you want to step in, feel that you can. Yeah. Don't feel that you have to be quiet in the corner because that's what other photographers have said to you. This is what I like to do. But at the same time, sometimes it's like I also want to kind of set that boundary of going though. But if I am doing something, you will get your turn, so you don't need to cut me off. Do you know what I mean? Like you don't need. Yeah. I'm not going to be. I've got what I need. Let's go. I will always say to you.
Is there anything you want before we go? Yeah.
So don't feel the need that whilst I'm doing something, all of a sudden I've got like a lens growing out of my ear, going, do that too. Do that too. Or can you just move this? It's like we've all got time.
Yeah. As simple for both videographers and photographers. As simple. Are you happy to move on to the other person? Is it shows that like you've thought about, are they finished taking their photos, or have they finished taking their like video shot? Because for a lot, like often it takes a bit longer to get those few seconds of footage, or for videography sometimes you want to go wide and then get your medium and then your tight, or one angle over the bride's shoulder, one angle of the groom's shoulders to create that story. But a lot of the time for photography, it's not exactly like that. Once you've got the pose and the shot, you move on to the next one.
Yeah, which I find weird because I think, and maybe I'm generalising here, is I think it's easier for a photographer to take stills of what you're doing for you posing, it's naturally movement led, than it is for a videographer to get good shots of what the photographer's doing if it's still.
Depends.
Do you know what I mean? But then you get some people that get really offended that are like, oh, that's my creative vision. And it's like, well, if you're making someone do like something which is really kind of like posed anyway, as a video it's not going to work because it's really still. Yeah. But if you as a videographer go, just have a little walk and a spin or whatever, it's like you as a photographer can shoot through that and probably still get something. Yeah. So I just find it odd where there's like, does that preciousness work both ways? Do you know what I mean? Like if a photographer said to you, well, it's my couple shoot, like you can take them to your bit afterwards. Yeah. Would you then turn around and go like, well, fine, it works both ways then? You're not taking video, you're not taking photos during my bit.
Well, yeah, obviously. Yeah.
But have you ever had that? Like people have been that way, but then it's still expected to photograph whilst you're filming.
No, I've never had someone say, "Oh, you can do your own shoot." Well, I have had that once, but it's a very long time ago, and it didn't really mean much. That is what it is. Yeah. I have also had someone say that I can come on the sunset shoot before. Which I've just blatantly said no. I was like, I'm coming on this sunset shoot. The couple.
And I think that's one of the other things as well. Is if you are someone that maybe is quite shy or not confrontational, is don't be afraid to stand your ground. Like there's not, even if the photographer, is more experienced than you or is charged more than you or whatever, you still have been paid by that couple to be there. Yeah. And for them to then come back and go, but they would probably walk off to the sunset and then go, oh, well, why is the videographer not here? This would be really good. And the photographer's probably not going to turn around and go, I told them to stay back because I don't like them, are they? Because they're not going to.
Where is the videographer?
They're not going to want to look like a dick in front of the couple. So if anything, you're better off to just kind of tag along because the chances are the person who's being a knob's probably not going to turn around and actively tell you to go away, are they? In front of the couple, because then the couple will probably go, actually, no, we want them to be here or whatever. So I think sometimes you can, particularly on couple shoots, you almost can call the person who's being a knob's bluff.
Yeah.
Because they're never going to want to turn around and look bad. Like, that's the point where most of the guests aren't there. It is literally just you guys and the couple.
Yeah.
So again, like in the moment, you're really obvious. The way that you carry yourself and the way that you work, that's the point where they have an experience with you the most.
Yeah.
And it's like, and all they see is you being rude to somebody else or trying to shut somebody else down, it's not going to do that person any favours, is it? You can look like the better professional for going, well, I still want to get something for them, and kind of.
And as much of this episode is about being strong and holding your ground a little bit as well, because like I say, and this is probably a me problem, but like when I first started getting these issues, I'd probably just go into my shell and not. I probably been like, oh, okay, that's fine. You go on your couple shoot.
Yeah.
But now I know who I am and I know what my couples want from me, and I know that is what it is. And don't get me wrong, it's only happened once in the hundreds of weddings that I've done, but it's like that to have that ability to be like, no, I'm coming. I'm going on.
But it's human nature, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? When like humans meet each other for the first time, whether it's like people in prison or kids in a playground, is that people almost want to assert dominance over the others. And I imagine that, I guess we're sat here again as two males, that I imagine that paradigm can get even more exasperated if you get a female videographer with a male photographer, or the other way, a male videographer and a female photographer.
Do you reckon? Yeah.
Almost then being, well, I'm going to get what I need, and almost feel that there's almost that dominance level of, well, I can do this because I'm bigger than you, or I can do this because I'm more experienced. Is that, you know, I'd like to think that you would never get to a point where you feared for your safety against another supplier. Yeah. It is literally almost a battle of words, but to almost, again, on that first meeting in the morning, if you almost assert, no, you're not going to get away with this. Yeah. Like, if people push their luck, don't they? Yeah. And if someone said to you, like, oh, there you are, squish all your details up, set them up yourself then, and you go, well, why didn't you just leave them?
Yeah.
Like, and almost call it out. I think then they'll realise maybe, or it'll make them think, hopefully, oh, maybe that was a bit mean.
Yeah.
Or if they go, well, I don't care what you think, I need to do this, I'm willing to compromise, but we both need to get something out of this, and almost know that you're not going to be a pushover.
Yeah.
And do as they tell you. You can stay behind and take them on your own shoot, or don't come near me, or don't do this. Like those things. I think if you almost set those back, or make it clear in the morning that you're not a pushover. I reckon probably 7.5 to 8 out of 10 people in that moment either will back down or realise they're going to have to play nice. Play ball, they're not. You're not going to just do as they say.
Yeah, and I think the ceremony kind of like opens up another sort of branch to that story, because it's that two-way communication of, I'm going to be stood here, or I'm going to be doing this, and that's not telling you what to do, that's just saying, this is what I would normally do, how does that work for you? And I feel like maybe it's just me, but I feel like that is often quite one way. Like, I don't often get told by photographers where they're going to be and what they're going to be doing. But I know that me and Josh do make an effort when we're shooting together to be to the photographer, like, we've got a camera here, we've got a camera here. Yeah. Like, I'm not telling you can't get in the way of them. You can get in the way of them if you want, because we've got two more of them. All I'm telling you is that's where they are. Yeah. Like, we've got one at the back of the aisle, which is on 150mm looking at the couple. It's quite tight. So if you do need to shoot it from the back of, like, in the aisle, can you maybe shoot above our camera or left and right?
Do you know what doesn't annoy me though? The only caveat that I have to this is I'm easy breezy, but I think, and it maybe the ceremony is the first time that this becomes a thing. Yeah. Is if I'm working with two videographers, it's the first time that I'm then working with both of them at the same time. Yeah. Is I think, and maybe this is wrong because I'm not a videographer, the camera at the back doesn't need to be manned though, and that's some of the things that can annoy me the biggest, or give me the biggest issue, is that a tripod on a camera at the back of an aisle, when you're shooting the couple at probably f2 or 2.8, is a blur of something. But if you have a lump of a human stood behind it in the middle of the aisle, then stood like looking at the camera or whatever, that stands out like a sore thumb. Surely they can come in, get their shot, hit record, and go stand at the back behind the guests, or sit down, or something. Like, you don't need to stand there for the entire half an hour of the ceremony, literally like lurking in the back of my frame.
I understand, but I disagree. I think I think it could work like that if you just if you set up that shot on like F8 or whatever, got the registrar and the couple in and walked away, you're probably likely going to get the same results as long as that second person is there to move the camera into the middle once the brides walk down the aisle. But for me, like I use that angle for they move it for the readings and they move it back to the registrar, and then sometimes like if we're shooting at a lower aperture, I'll ask like the second shooter to focus on the registrar. The registrar's talking, and then once the vowels are started, it pings the focus to the couple instead, and the registrar is kind of a little bit in the fall off. Which is not a requirement of video at all. Yeah. So I get it. Like you could tone it down.
Like that would be my compromise. I'm saying if you've got a front angle of the couple anyway, and that was on them. That's the only thing sometimes I really or I would always request if there's two of them, I would assume that you'd have one at the front and one at the back, or the same in photography, the one at the back might be roving though to get some shots over guests, or again to move that tripod into the aisle once the bride has come down.
But that's the thing. I think you should ask people that, like, that back angle that you've got, is it okay for some of the time not to be manned, because I would quite like to get some shots.
I have in the past, or a lot of them you don't realise though until it's. Like, I think, again, I had a wedding where someone stood by it, and again, and maybe they weren't, again, I'm not the height of fashion, but to have, like, just someone, like, stood there in, like, jeans and a coat, do you know what I mean? Like, looking really bored, like, you're staring into space, stood next to a camera, and it's like, fair enough, they are just kind of a blur, but it's still really obvious there's a really dark figure just stood in the middle of your aisle, which if you're in an outdoor ceremony and everyone else is sat down, it's really obvious. It's really, really obvious. So I think in those instances, I agree with that, I always try and be as discreet as I can. And I think that's probably normally one of my only kind of things that I will say is like, I have no problem with the camera being there, but just does it need to be manned for the entire ceremony?
No, that definitely makes sense, and the one thing I put was the first kiss. And I appreciate this is a me problem as much as anything, but it is one of those things that is like a friction point, I guess. And don't get me wrong, like it's not affected me. Like no photographer has ever been to me, oh, you're doing this, like you've annoyed me or whatever. But actually, one person has. But it's so I shoot from two angles. I have two angles at the front, sort of like cross shooting with the couple, and then one like angle at the back, which is like the close up angle of the couple. Generally, like my best first kiss shot is from the back, so you'll get obviously like my second shooter in the aisle at the back, manning the camera, zooming in, and they've got like the couple, like the registrar in the background, or the registrar maybe runs out and they do their first kiss. But often, what the photographer wants is, and yourself included, is to stand right in the center on the other side, and get the couple kissing. And so what you end up with is you've got my videographer in the shot at the back, and we've got you in the background of the couple, and neither of us have spoken about it to each other.
And I think as well, despite our last episode about AI, now knowing that you can mask things, it's far easier for a photographer to Photoshop out the person lurking in the aisle than it is to do that. But then I think, as I've come to do this, and maybe it's not always from working with videographers, but I still believe, I think sometimes it's easier to have a conversation with a videographer before than it is a registrar. A lot of registrars have got good at moving out of the way, but not all of them have. So, and also, I think if you're in a venue, a lot of times the amount of couples now that have flowers or an arch or something, like the best looking shot of the first kiss is with that in the background, not the guests. So unless I'm in a venue where I'm kind of pinned in at the front, I will always try in those closing words to get down round the couple and to the back of the the ceremony for the first kiss, so that you get that kind of shot of the aisle and then over the flowers that you've been hiding behind for the ceremony, the arch or whatever, and then the first kiss from there. Because I can get, as long as the couple isn't a peck, I could normally get a wide of them going in for the kiss and then a tight shot from the back of the kiss. And so it's not an issue. And particularly sometimes, though, I know I did a wedding with Josh last year where he was on a wide at the back, and I was like, can I get near enough down the aisle to get my tight shot without standing in front of yours? So in the end, I literally stood over his with my camera, like over the top of his on 85 to get it. So I do understand. I mean, that's the big problem. Or unless you're at a venue where you're literally like, you can't get out.
Crammed in.
That's the easy win for that, isn't it? Is you don't need to get it from the front.
And the ironic thing is, I do think that the better shot is from the front.
Do you?
Yeah.
I think it's from the back.
I think the better looking shot is from the back, but I think the better shot for the couple is from the front. I've only
because they want to see like the fall off of their friends,
their friends and family faces, and stuff. I've shot two photography weddings, and one of them I shot the first kiss from the front, and it was like a meal venue, and it had that inside, and it was quite a narrow aisle, so you could literally see all the friends and family in the background. background, that's the photo they used for like to frame or something like that, is them like looking at each other about to kiss, like smiling, and then you've got all their friends and family clapping and looking really happy in the background. And I think that's really valuable and actually the better shot. But I think the logistics of trying to predict when that is, get your monopod, frame it up and everything in the middle, when the registrar is running out of the way, makes it just a little bit too risky for me to do it every wedding. So
and I think I am speaking. I'm talking generally that, kind of. I think that's the prettier shot from the back.
It is, yeah.
And sometimes I think it's just it's easier to do well because I think the one at the front is riskier.
Yeah.
If you get a registrar that don't move, they can sometimes block the first kiss,
or, not, just like
or they're
the
kind of in it, or if the light sometimes is like the light's coming in from behind. If you're in a barn, the couple are almost silhouetted against it, and by the time you expose for them, the people are blown out anyway. Where often the light from the back falls on them, it looks a lot more natural. Do you know what I mean? And particularly if you're in a dark barn on a bright day. I was kind of finding out I've had a better consistency rate.
Yeah.
It's much safer, or you're going to get a shot which looks good from the back.
I don't know, it depends where you are. A lot of barns have the window at the front.
Yeah, so if you've got those and it's front bit, I think it's different. And again, we get into a whole other episode. But I think in terms of kind of collaboration, I do understand that, and to kind of, but that's normally for me at a ceremony is that moment. And then we come to the joys of confetti, don't we? Which I think confettis and aisle walks are probably the most stressful.
And maybe working with a
photographer. I don't care if I photograph it or not.
Yes.
Unless they're having a big entrance.
Yeah.
But get one of those, like, you seen the recent one? Have you seen the one that was gone viral recently?
No.
With the lady who walks into the glass barn doing the "Where the hell is my husband?"
Oh, God, yeah.
And then he appears on the balcony.
I've not
most
seen
of my
it,
couples would die inside if they did that. They are not, like, most of them don't even want to be announced in. They just shuffle in with their guests because they find it cringe.
Yeah.
But, like, if that is you and you could own that and love it, like, the vibe in the room was insane. But yeah.
I've been told about it quite a lot. This video, I've not actually.
Have you not seen it?
So many people have been like, "Oh, have you seen the Where the Hell's My Husband" video? And it's like, okay, that's going to be a massive thing next year, isn't it? Clearly, or this year.
Yes, I think the song's big at the moment, isn't it? But anyway, I think so, which helps it. But yeah, for that would be a nuts. Yeah,
that'd be cracking. Yeah.
But yeah, for confetti, I think again that's where the compromise is at its peak, isn't it? I think nearly every wedding that I shoot now that has confetti does the confetti tunnel or the confetti walk, if you like, and. How you do that when the tunnel's normally narrow enough for the couple, let alone trying to get a photographer and a videographer in the mix, maybe a content creator as well, all trying to walk backwards on top of each other and all sorts. Yeah.
Here's my question for you then. When you are, let's say you got a videographer with you and you're like telling people, do you do like the whole like, oh, everybody throw it upwards and not at their faces and that kind of thing?
I try to. Whether people actually do or not is different.
But so obviously, like after the ceremony, generally, like the confetti line's being set up, like I often help people get people in line and stuff, but I don't really do okay, everyone, are we ready for the couple and whatever?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, yeah, so you do that, yeah. So would you be like, oh, the videographer should really be doing this as well? Or do you use that's my job?
I also think there's too many cooks.
Yeah.
If I go to a venue and they've got a wedding coordinator who's really on the ball, while the time the couple are coming down the aisle, they're already waiting there with the confetti baskets and they're trying to line people up, I'll step off because I think people coming out the ceremony normally drying their eyes, picking up their confetti, the little kid who's probably dropping all of that stuff for me is documentary gold. Yeah. So if I'm doing admin, if you like, or lining people up, I'm not getting that stuff.
Yeah.
So I always try and do a balance of both. I want people to be where they be. So, because sometimes people naturally huddle really, really close, or the opposite, go really, really far away, and then the confetti's never going to hit the couple anyway.
Yeah.
So I always try and do enough to get the confetti shot that I need, but at the same time, also trying to still be that documentary observer.
Yeah.
If the videographer started shouting, I'd just stop and let them do it.
Yeah.
But I don't feel that it's as much their job as it is mine.
Okay.
There's many more than I feel it's my job, really.
Yeah.
It
could be interesting because, like, on the day, I obviously love to get involved with everything. I never really see anything as the photographer's job. But one thing I will normally leave the photographer to, unless they're quiet and don't do it, is that bit before the confetti when they're like, okay, everyone throw it up, because I don't do it.
So again, I'll ask you a different question then. Obviously, I always do the tunnel. I think the tunnel looks best. We've said this, I think it looks best. Yeah. If you had a photographer that wanted to do the other way, that wanted to get all the guests out and do an everybody shot straight away, and then the couple was at the front and was like, oh, at the end of this, on 3, we're all just going to throw confetti in the air, would you actually go, can we not just do the tunnel instead? Would you kind of push for the tunnel, even if it wasn't their style?
I would push for the tunnel. If they were adamant that it was, I would ask for a reason that it had to be that way.
Yeah.
Like it had to be like the standstill and everyone throw it over. if there wasn't a legitimate reason, I'd probably be like, well, maybe we can ask the couple then and see what they want.
Yeah.
There has been a couple of times where the couple have planned like the standstill one, and I've encouraged them to do a tunnel just because for video I think it looks better, and for photo you obviously get a lot more different variety of shots on that way as well. So it's not really been a big issue because generally like the couple will decide, or the venue has it a certain way. You know, venues do things a certain way every time anyway. So it's very rare that I get the standstill and throw confetti anymore.
Yeah.
So I don't really run into that issue a lot. The main thing is like the tracking back thing.
Yeah.
Which some photographers do like to stand at the back and get that 85 or 72. Is it?
Yeah.
Okay. I obviously don't know because I've obviously only seen you when you've worked with me.
Yeah.
But some will be happy to sit on the 35 and track back with you.
Yeah.
Obviously, as videographers, or I say as videographers, I'm generalising. Personally, I like to go on the gimbal on a 35. I can stretch to a 50 if it's a long confetti aisle and walk backwards, because for me that's more dynamic than just waiting at the back and just getting a shot of.
But again, I think there's one of those prime examples, isn't it, where photo and video are very, very different.
Yeah.
I often can stand, if the building they're coming out of or the door is nice, if you're like a town hall or like a barn and it's a really kind of, or a church with like a really kind of arch, I think the 85 at the back can give you some really lovely layers of them kind of emerging, so you get the sense of the building, kind of the confetti becomes more fall off because you're on a longer focal length, you get it more. But then if you're somewhere else and it's a really short confetti aisle, it's really like to be in amongst it with a wider lens makes more sense.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of it depends where I am. But if it's a really, really long confetti aisle, I prefer to start long and then almost change halfway through. And I think in the times we've done a couple of bigger weddings, that would be the compromise for me, is you don't need to stand 2 paces outside the door and track from the very beginning. If we can start halfway, I can be on a 50, get my full length shot of them during the confetti as they're coming out, and then switch to the wider lens just as your footage starts to kick in, and then we track together.
And both ways are a perfectly good style. Like if your style is like, you know, like tripod 85, perfectly like frame shots and that, you might want to stand at the back because then you have a lot more control over that. So that is your style. But it just comes to when there's two of you, a photographer and a videographer, you're gonna have to reach some sort of compromise and realize that I'm not going to get the same stuff that I would.
And you also, I think there's I've just thought about it, is you almost need to get a compromise which you know that if the other person wrongs you, you've still got something.
Yeah.
So I had an instance like this once. I did remember doing a church wedding, and you came out of the church, and then there was a really narrow path along the side of the church.
Yeah.
So you had like people stood with their backs to the church wall, and then people stood on the grass, and the couple walked down. And I was working with a videographer that I'd never worked with before, and he was an associate for someone else. So he was very much just trying to get my footage. I'm not interested in like playing games or whatever. Yeah. And it was a really long aisle, and I said to him, "Well, it's really narrow. We're going to really struggle to get both of us." In this aisle without pushing these guests down the grass. So he was like, "Oh, it's fine, mate. We'll just do halfway." Yeah. Like I'll track halfway with them, and then when we get halfway, I'll just jump out into like the tunnel, and then they can just carry on towards you. So if you wait at the end, bang in.
Okay.
And I was like, "Yeah, I'll do that." Fair enough. No, it wasn't. He probably went like just over 3/4 of the way, and then by the time that he got out the way enough that I could get a clear shot of them, there were like 2 people left to throw confetti on them, and even on a 35, I was only getting like from the bouquet to the tops of their heads. Yeah. And that's the only time I think I've really panicked during confetti and gone, I've got nothing. And he then, knowing that he had this really lovely footage of them emerging out the gate all the way down, and I was almost too submissive or trusted him enough that he would step out at what I deemed what I deemed was halfway. Yeah. So I think ever since that moment, I've gone, no, we start halfway. So I know that even really by the time that you even start filming, I've probably got enough at the worst to put a decent confetti shot in the gallery.
Yeah. And if you're a photographer that shoots it from the back, the halfway thing is actually a really good compromise just for a videographer that wants to walk backwards. Because as a videographer, like we still get, in fact, we get probably more of like the important guests at the front of the confetti line getting like throwing that first bit on them, everyone cheering. Like you say, like as a videographer, you don't need to stand 2 foot away from the door that they're coming out of. So I've said this before on the pod, and my sort of motto around that is ask permission first, then ask for a compromise, and if no compromise is given, I'll do what the hell I want, basically.
It's funny because I come from a live music background, and there's like a common thing in that is like where it's easier to ask for forgiveness than it is to ask for permission. So a lot of times in that, if they go, "Oh, you probably shouldn't be there, or you shouldn't stand in that spot," you run out, you get the shot, then you get told off afterwards, which I think is kind of a dick move if you approach that weddings that way. But I think even, for all the things that we've said so far up to now is, in the morning, you kind of tell people how it's going to be. If they knock that back, you then offer a compromise. If they knock that back, you're then in business for yourself because they're clearly in business for themselves. Yeah. And then it is just an all out. And I think that's the over thing. If you can be the consummate professional, and if it really got nasty, so I have offered you multiple times, how I've told you how I like to do things, so you knew what I wanted to do. Yeah. Well, I then offered a compromise to show that I was willing to work with you. And by the third time, you're just a dick. Yeah. Really.
You got to know that you're working as a team with somebody now, and okay, that team person might not be in your payroll or out to make your work the best it can possibly be, but you're all there for the couple. So yeah. And
also as well, I'm sure I've recounted the story on the podcast before. I remember working with a really, really new videographer, the guy who stopped the dad from speaking because he hadn't mic'd people up and all this and that. It's like, if you don't, in those instances where you can see that it's going to go south, is distance yourself. Do your job, be cordial to them when you need to, but just do what you need to do to make yourself look professional. Like, so many days when I work with you or work with Josh or a videographer that I do know, so many of the guests assume, oh, you guys must be pals, or do you work together? Are you from the same business? Yeah. And it's like, if that relationship's not there, you need to not badmouth the other person, but make it clear that you are not working for the same company. And so in the end, that you don't get seen in that same negative light.
In case something does happen. Yeah.
So that or you don't get wrongly, then you lose out on a referral because someone go, well, the photographer was awesome, but like. Yeah, because I've heard from someone who's there all day. I've heard brides talk about hair and makeup like that. That come as a package, and they go, "We loved the hairdresser; she was incredible, but the makeup bar, what a bitch." Yeah. Or you hear those things, and they get associated, and maybe sometimes they're not from the same company, but people assume they are, or
caterers
whatever.
And venue as well.
And all of those things. So I think if you're kind of the last kind of ditch of it where things are really getting frictioned, don't scream in front of the couple. Just try and rise above it, be better, and then just make sure that you don't work with that person again.
Make the best impression for yourself as well in front of the couple, like you say.
Do you get evidence? Because I've heard of people talk about this as well. Like, if a photographer's a dick, would you keep the footage of them stepping in front of you? So then if the couple moaned about it, you can go, well, look, it was clearly a him problem.
Because I keep footage anyway. It's not because of that reason. No, I mean, there are times where, let's say I've got like a speeches angle and like, I don't know why I would do it. There's only a certain like limited situations in which I would do it. But if the photographer stands in front of like the main speeches angle that's like at the back on 150, like going straight down towards the thing, and like let's say my second is walking around trying to get the next reaction shot or something, I will keep that photographer getting in the shot in it. Yeah. And it's not to spite the photographer. It's normally just because I have to. Normally I would try and make it look like there wasn't even a photographer in the room. But if they were in the way and that just happened to be the case, I would do it. But I've never.
Yeah, but it's not done in kind of a shady way.
It's not like I'm going to keep this in so the couple know that this person got in the way.
Because I always find it really kind of really hard. Like, to do that, I don't want to be in people's films, really, particularly. Like, when you see yourself walking backwards down the aisle because the second shooter's behind all of us. Yeah. I don't want to be that person. Or again, if I'm there like joking with a couple during a couple shoot or a group photo, I guess that's one thing because I am part of the wedding. Yeah. But like to just be kind of looking awkward, bimbling around while holding my camera, I don't want to actively be in your shot. I'm not trying to do that, so then I can go to you at the end. I'll chuck me some BTS if you've got any, because I don't want it like that way. But
that's it's really just kind of that being
respective, isn't it?
Yeah. That's a really funny one of you at the wedding we did together. And I think I was shooting a moment between you were doing group shots, and when you like turned away or something, I was shooting a moment between the bride and maybe her mum, and you then just walked into the shot and was just like waiting for something to happen. And I think I left that in because like you just came into the size of the frame and I was like, this is too nice for a moment to like not have it.
Just me looking gormless instead. Just make me look at every bit of the buffoon I am. That's it. But don't you find if you watch yourself back in those things, I would literally look at myself and go, what am I doing?
Yeah, there's often times where my second's got like he's doing some candids and I just walk into the background and I'm just looking around like I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm like, Jesus, that really looked like that on a wedding day. But no, it's I I say to the photographer, I don't care if you're in the shots because you're part of the day, but when I'm in the edit, I would rather pick a shot without them in it.
And I guess the last one, I think now kind of, once we get through speeches and stuff, again, multiple angles, I think it's very similar to the way that you negotiate a ceremony. But I think the last kind of place that sometimes I can find friction or that sometimes can annoy me, which is a shame because it's the last bit of the day, sometimes the dancing. Like dance floors are small. And I remember in the early days, it doesn't happen so much now, but videographers that used to use on-camera lights. I remember that being like a real, like, either getting blinded by it because they turn around to look at you and it stares down their lens. Or, like, again, I don't think a flash is distracting, don't get me wrong, it is, but it's a flash. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's gone.
Quickly, where I don't notice a flash because not often the DJ's got lights. And
exactly. So it blends in. But, like, say, I remember having issues with videographers and going to him, can you turn this off? And it just being, no. Like, it's dark, I need light. And it's like, but it's so jarring. Like, these people aren't going to lose their inhibitions and flail and dance when you're literally shining a torch in their eyes.
I think that's changing.
I think that's changed with kit. I think that's changed with kit, I use them for sparklers. I've got an LED that sometimes, because I don't want a flat, I use a flash during sparklers. I have like a little LED panel which you can change the colour temperature on. So I find that I stick that on really low, like 25%, but with the orangiest light. And it just keeps my ISO sensible. It colour matches the sparklers so that they still get a warm glow on them, and it means that my camera can actually focus a little bit easier.
I've started doing that for sparklers. I'm actually loving it because I can shoot sparklers anyway, regardless, because it's 12,800 ISO and the A7S or whatever, and it looks really natural because the couple are lit by the sparklers and nothing else. But there's been a couple of times where I'm like, you know, that light looks really good on them, and because it's the photographer's.
Where flash is more jarring because it's colder than the sparklers, so I find I use it for that. But then again, it's a static walk, isn't it? So, and probably I'm gonna hug even closer to the videographer because I don't want to get burned by the drunk idiots down the side. But I think sometimes the dance floor is even more. Sometimes I find that videographers get in my way, if that's the right way of saying it, even more. Why are you laughing at me?
I delivered some uncut footage from a wedding we both did together and had sparklers. And in the uncut footage, like, obviously we're walking backwards doing the sparklers and you're going, ow, my head.
Literally, some dickhead hit,
and it cracked me up. And I was like, trying to edit like two different shots I had together of like the drone, sync up the drone footage. And I've just played that video, that clip of you so much going, ow, my head.
That was, a Christmas wedding, wasn't it? It was properly dark. Like really, really dark.
As well.
And so I remember someone literally bending their sparkler in 90 degrees and just doing this with it, like a lasso, and straight to the back of the noggin. That's it. If it wasn't that, it was so damn cold on the day, I think.
Sparklers, it was, cracked me up.
So, but I find honestly dance floor and particularly sometimes videographers lighting of a dance floor. I don't mind. I quite like it when you bring ambient light. I know why it annoys DJs. I can understand why it annoys some couples because it's too light. Or why some photographers, if they were using a real direct flash style, where the light would be too much. But again, it's compromise, isn't it? You still need to have well lit footage of them dancing or.
And I think that going on from the dancing as well. I think that is sometimes when you've got two photographers and two videographers, it does get packed on a dance floor. And I think, I don't know, it's really hard, obviously, because you're both in separate businesses. But if there was an agreement, like, oh, can we only have one photographer and one videographer on a dance floor at once? I'd be like, that is a cracking idea. And I would genuinely be like, let's do that. But there never is. It's always like, we're just going to swarm on them like flies and get the...
Well, again, I was sometimes, you get in those venues where they've got a mezzanine or a high point. I would send the second to get the wide. I've tried to do both sometimes. Do you know what I mean? You start on the balcony and then you run down. We did the wedding, didn't we? Again, where I did that. Where I started up and then literally I was like, oh, they're in the perfect place. Then you run in and do your little round the couple. I'm like, come on. But again, I photoshopped you out. It was fine. I still got my shot that I needed and managed to then get down from the balcony and still onto the dance floor by the time that everybody rushed in. But I think that's probably sometimes one of the other busiest like pinch points. Or if you've got a photographer that is, say, big light or direct flash and are kind of not mindful of where you are, I imagine that could become a little bit of a...
I don't mind flash for dance floors. Again, I barely notice when the photographers using flash for dance floors. I think there's more of a trend now of shooting super wide on dance floors, which is becoming a bit of an issue. But again, it's their style, and I'll just go find someone else to shoot.
Maybe that's it.
My biggest peeve is posing stuff on the dance floor. Because this actually happens.
Really?
So they'll like...
You've actually blown my mind now.
They'll go up to like a group of people who are dancing and they'll be like I'm going to take a photo of you. And then all the group, they'll stop their dancing and they'll hug each other on the dance floor and like pose like a nightclub.
I actually try and... See, that happens to me and I actually try and stop people doing it. Do you know what I mean? They're in the moment and I'm trying to and that's why I kind of then always, a lot of times, once the dancing starts or once the first dance is over, is go and lose a camera and go down to one camera. and so that you don't have like you can weave a bit more,
Yeah.
or say when people stop you and grab their mates out, it's like, no, I'm not going to make you a keyring, mate, just dance.
It's like, that's what I do. The sling bag comes off, the camera's detached from the gimbal when I'm in party mode. It's like go straight to it. But that has not becoming a thing actually. To be fair, it's probably more of an old school thing, but of like I'm filming like a group of people dancing and then they all stop for a photo and I'm like, well, that's got ruined. But I don't find the dance all that much of a problem, to be honest.
I feel like in a moment though, like if we went back to kind of maybe the whole kind of point of the episode is if you were a videographer and you wanted to be a dick to a photographer, or vice versa, the dance floor's a really easy place to do that. And again, maybe I hadn't considered, again, I'm not often shooting 24, 20 mil. So you do have to be quite close, or the people which are the rowdiest on the dance floors, particularly just after first dance, there's not normally everybody. So you're also all trying to photograph the same one hug or the same one group of people. And if you all need to get really close, it's been quite often that I've been shooting from one side, you or the other have been shooting from the other side, and it's really common that you are in the back of each other's footage at that moment, or however.
The first dance as well. That's quite big, because I like to be at the DJ booth or the band shooting out towards the guests for a lot of the first dance, and I'm happy to move around and stuff, but I'll get, sometimes people say to me, oh, you're not going to do that thing where you like spin around the couple, are you, that videographers do? And like I say no, because I don't really do it anymore. But also, I kind of want to say yes, because like that's my choice whether I want to do that sort of thing.
See, I still always ask.
Time,
I think now, because I don't feel that a lot of videographers do it anymore, but I still think, again, from when I started, that was the go-to. I think there were so many videos that was, before drones were a thing and people started their footage with that, the kind of slow pan around the couple on the dance floor was what most people started there or ended their footage with.
I do it, but I do it in a semicircle now, so I don't go all the way around, because usually the photographer's perched up somewhere. I don't want to go all the way around, get in their shot, they're in my shot, when I could just do a semicircle a few times and still get the guests in the background.
So so even now, I think that's one of the things that I definitely always ask on a dance floor. And again, maybe it's just because I'm old and it's like that's how it always used to be. But it's always. But I think again, it's the way you word it. It's not that you're not going to, are you? It's like, how do you want to play this then? Because I would say if you want to do that, it's fine.
I'll come with you.
But can we just say start at the chorus? You give me the first verse to get just 2 or 3 lovely wides of someone videoing in the background. Again, like mum looking soppy. Like again, the guests in the background, them holding each other and dancing. Like maybe if there's going to be a spin, like I've kind of got that. But if you want to go in then for the big chorus and get what you need, that's fine. Like it really is. But
that's what a lot of people say to me as well.
Again, as long as you know it's coming, you know that you've got to work fast in the first bit, or you've got to join them or whatever. But it's if you know that, again, we're British, sometimes when it first dances are 30 seconds long. If you walk away from it with like one frame, if that, because the videographer has stood super close for the whole thing,
then it is a pain. And that is the perfect compromise to it. Is like, you give me a verse, or because you're still getting video shots of it at the end of the day. And I worked with a photographer recently, again, in like for night shots, who was like, oh, I'm going to do some flash stuff at night, and I was like, can we use a video light maybe for it? And it was like, that's actually cool, and then I can get stuff from it, because I can't get anything from a flash photo shoot at night, but I can from if I use my video light, and they can equally get pretty much the same thing. But actually be able to see it through the viewfinder as well.
And I think that's probably maybe a really nice place to kind of sum all of this up, is that we're always better together than we are working against each other. Like I remember, like again, I now, if I get a videographer, particularly if it's you or it's Josh, someone I know, that you guys do use lights in the evening, it's brilliant. I don't even bring my tripods. I don't have to bring my own light, or I don't have to worry about setting my off-camera flash up, because I know that you're like the dance floor. And so what's the point in me having my light set up next to yours just so I can use mine? Like, work together. I remember doing a wedding a couple of years ago, and the videographer had travelled a lot further. She got to the day, and just she opened her bag, her Sigma Art dropped out, and she cracked the front. So I was like, you're on Sony, I've got a 50mm, do you want to borrow it? And so she shot most of the day on my 55, because it's a third lens for me. I can get around without it, and it's like, I could have just been a dick and let her muddle on with, other stuff. But but that wouldn't have been the best thing for the couple. I gave her, and she was probably flustered enough that she was a long way from home with a broken lens, that if you can just extend that olive branch and be a nice person, or just work nicer with someone. Like,
I know videographers that have given a photographer like a camera to shoot with for the day. I know, like, I've been given like a lens from a photographer. I think you gave me someone gave me the 35 1.4 to start off with.
You lent me yours before I bought mine. I remember doing a wedding with you, and I was still on the 1.8 and was like, I really want to try the 1.4. And you were like, well, I never use it in drink reception. So do you want to try it? And I shot all my groups on it. And then it was great. So when I came home and edited those, that was like, brilliant now. Like I almost got like a free lens rental for like an hour to cement the decision that yes, that's the lens that I want to go buy. But even that, and this is literally talking about just a day. That's before you even get to the referral place where a couple say to a photographer, oh, do you recommend any videographers to work with? And you're always going to recommend the one that was nice to you or you got on and spending the day with, and the one that was an arsehole.
Yeah, even if their work's not your style or not what you would book, you're going to recommend the one that you're going to have a good time with on the day. So,
and we know from it all the time we do this podcast, you're quite often booked alongside super editorial photographers same. Sometimes I rock up and the videographer, I look at the video when they tell me who the videographer is, and it's like, oh, that's not really me at all.
Yeah.
But it's fine.
Sometimes that's what couples want.
Yeah, because they want that variation, or they want you to do what you really excel at, and knowing that more as that videographer will fill the gaps of that. Yeah. But I think, to bring it all back to kind of like bullet points, is it goes kind of primarily to that set boundaries at the beginning, but not in front of the couple.
Yeah.
Offer a compromise if the person's being shady, but time you get to the third,
go in expected to work as a team first, and then if it doesn't work, then do these things. And
then by the time you get to last doors, you just have to do what's right for you. Don't almost be the submissive and be forced into making bad choices for the couple because the photographer's made you feel intimidated or whatever.
Just understand that at that point it doesn't, like, you just got to do your job and do it as best as you possibly can, and don't give in to people who are, if it gets that bad, which is very, very rare, but you just have to just not give in and just like do your thing and get through the day. Yeah, as though you'd much love to kind of stand in their way or sabotage, you killing them with kindness, acting like a professional in front of the people there will do far more for your business than it will do you trying to spend the day getting one over on that person. It won't make you feel better in that moment, but for the greater good of for you and the couple, it's not the one. Yeah. And to go on from that, like, I've definitely had situations where I've turned up and the reception from the photographer has been cold, and we have killed them with kindness. And by the end of the day, they're chatting to us and they're like, oh yeah, I had this videographer that did this, so when I saw you guys, wasn't really sure, and now I'm like, it's actually been really nice to work with you and stuff like that. So be that. I wouldn't say be like me, but be those people who like are good to work with. Yeah. And but then again, it's hard, isn't it? Because again, we all turn up to weddings in different states. Some people might have come and have loads of really heavy family stuff going at home and just want to get through that day. You might be riding high on the second of a third wedding. You're tired, but you're loving life. Like, we all turn up to those weddings. It's not an excuse to be a dick to another supplier, but I think, you have to be a little bit kind of understanding, or even just kind of say, just be a human first, and kind of, you've got to work alongside that person, haven't you? Yeah. And I'm ashamed all those people that work at corporate jobs go on a course or go on a work day or get new members of staff in, and they have to learn how to work with new people all the time. Just because we're predominantly running one person businesses, it's no different. You just have to learn to work with them in the same way that we have venues sometimes that put ridiculous restrictions on us, and we can't turn around and be rude to them because we're in their house. But it's the same thing, isn't it? Or definitely. I think sometimes it's because that they're just another business and you're both somewhere else. That, I think, gives a lot of people that are maybe leaning towards, or it's easy to be a dick than to be nice. Yeah. It gives them a green light to be that way, doesn't it? Yeah. But it's generally a really positive relationship. Like, I always say to people, one of my favourite parts of the job is working with the photographer. It's like you're two creatives who are out to fulfil the same purpose and get joy and like happiness and capture all of this, and like the dinner time conversations, what this podcast is based on, and like, it is in general a positive experience. I think if I had to start working weddings with no photographer, I would enjoy my job a lot less. Do you think? See, I now almost treat it like a treat. I love the weddings that I shoot alone because I can be me. Yeah. I also know as well, if someone that loves to talk and meet new people as much as I do, is that if I have a videographer at the day, when we sit down to chat at dinner, it's then kind of, oh crap, I normally go and spend a lot of time in the dinner room. As soon as I've eaten, I'm back in the dinner room. Yeah. And I'll be chatting to guests, I'll be photographing puddings come out. I get too comfortable or so involved in, or my joy of meeting that person, that then it's almost like, oh crap, I don't end up bonding with guests maybe in the same way because I naturally have that person to chat to, which I think is some of the reason I don't have a second or on a day, because it means that I know that I'd be too lured into the chat with them than I would be actually doing my job. Yeah. But then the half a dozen times a year that I do get to shoot with a videographer, it still feels a bit more of like a treat, like, oh, it's different today, but in the best way, rather than, oh, this is going to be a fight. Something refreshing to to make, because compromise and limitations are actually breed creativity as
They
well.
do. We have a whole episode on limitations and why they're a good thing, don't we? Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that's
and,
a good,
and you only learn to work. Or also, I think that you only do the things that you do on a wedding day because that's the best way that you know how. And sometimes that videographer might go, actually, can we do this in a different order? Or same to you. Or actually, you work with a photographer who does things a different way to someone else and go, that made the day run so much smoother. So it's like if you can leave yourself open or being willing to compromise, you might actually learn something or find your new favourite way of doing things.
Yeah, shout out to Costa, the photographer I worked with last year, who was really interested in the way I worked in terms of like getting the bridesmaids and groomsmen out at like just before the sunset shoot and getting the couple hyped and things like that. It's like, it's a really good idea. And then like the camcorder thing, he was like, what's this camcorder you use? And then went out and bought it and did that. And like, but inspiration like that is why we do it, right? There's plenty of times where I've rocked up and the photographer's done something, I'm like, that's cool, or that's a cool pose, or that's a cool like little prompt or whatever it is. And I'm like, I'm taking inspiration from you guys, and like, so
it's good. So again, collaboration is always going to be better than arguing and being a dick. But sometimes it does happen, and hopefully there's some things in there, or we've given you the courage to stand up for yourself the next time that someone is mean to you at a wedding.
Don't be a dick.
Yes, you are valid. You deserve to be there as much as they do.
Yeah,
and the rest of it. Yeah,
cool. Good. That's a good place to end it. So I hope you guys have found this somewhat helpful.
Hopefully you never need to use it.
Yeah, hopefully you never need to use this information. But it's an emergency smash this glass podcast episode if you need it. But hopefully you don't. And hopefully we can all work together. And it's the same again with content creators. We sort of mentioned it at the beginning, but this also applies to if you are a content creator and you're having this issues with either photo or video people, or to think about it the other way around of, okay, well, I might not agree with couples hiring this kind of person, but they are a human being at the end of the day.
And you're being paid by the same people. Yeah. They want you there equally as much, which is why they've paid you all to be there. So, again, just don't be a dick.
All right, that's it. Thanks for watching.
Thanks for listening.
And we'll
see you in the next one.